Great, thank you very much, Pete. I think Pete, the first slide is you, if that's okay. Just a very quick.
Sorry, yeah, apologies.
That's all right.
Apologies. Right. So, welcome to the first virtual festival that we've ever run. Obviously, we wanted to do this again face to face, but because of COVID restrictions still currently in place, this would be our sixth festival in normally Westway Leisure Centre, but again, we wanted to do a lot of things around the Paralympic Games, and obviously because the Paralympic Games have now been cancelled or postponed to next year, we still wanted to put on things for the sake of people, and that's what we're doing. We've got 16 events going on this week, and we kicked off at 10:30 this morning by Susie Rodgers, the double Paralympic gold medalist. So we're very grateful to her. Again, we are pleased to welcome people from all around the world. I think we've got Australia, France on this call as well as I think Malawi. So that's great news. Thank you very much for your support, as well as Wales. Obviously, Audrey is picking up that flag as well. So great. Thank you very much, Audrey. Just thank you to our sponsors, which is Jessica Insurance and Tesco bags of help, as well as many other funders that support us. As well as last thank you to this is going to be a difficult one for me to say, the Castle Community Club, Castle Community Hub, which are providing many sport sessions for us free this week. So thank you for them. Okay, I will pass you over now because you obviously bored me speaking. So I'll pass you over to Mr. Deep, that will fill you in on what we have been up to.
Great, thank you very much, Pete, and thank you everyone again for joining. If you don't mind switching slides, Pete. Great, thank you very much. As Pete mentioned, I'm Amadeep. I'm the fundraising manager at Disability Sports Coach. And just to give you a very quick background for those who may not be familiar with us, we empower disabled adults and children to live healthier, happier lives through sport. We do this through three main activities that we've been running since 2013. We've got our community club network, which provides 14 award-winning clubs across London that run every week in term times, providing sports for disabled people. They're multi-sport clubs for people of all ages and all impairments. Secondly, we provide bespoke coaching services across schools, colleges, and organizations, helping them to deliver inclusive sport and PE, so no child and no adult miss out. Thirdly, we train coaches, teachers, and community groups across London and the South East with the skills to confidently deliver sport and physical activity for disabled people. And those are skills that they have for life and can take into any roles in the future as well with them. And that in a nutshell is the three main areas of our work. Go to the next slide, please, Pete. Of course, thank you very much, Pete. Earlier this year, things changed dramatically for everyone with the advent of COVID-19. And so Cecilia is going to do a lot more in-depth conversation and representation about the impact of COVID-19 on disabled people, and I'll just share a bit about the impact about us. So since lockdown in mid-March, all of our community clubs have been closed, and alongside that, with schools and colleges closed, all of our training and coaching activities have been postponed as well. And the major issue of this has been, as you can see, hundreds of disabled people who would normally come along to a community club near them were now at risk of prolonged periods of inactivity. And another key element of our community clubs is that they're often the only social element of many people's lives, many of our members' lives. And so that opportunity to socialize and meet with friends has also been removed for the last 5 months, simply because of the impacts and the dangers of COVID-19. And this quote from one of our members, Taslim at Club Lambeth, really summed up how many of our members really felt about our clubs closing and the impact that COVID-19 has had on our services. Next slide, please, Pete. So what have we done to combat these challenges? So we acted very swiftly. We acted very swiftly to develop a range of alternative activities. We developed home equipment packs featuring things like tennis balls, bean bags and skipping ropes, being shown off there by Zane, one of our members from Club Wandsworth. And these packs have been sent to our most vulnerable members across London so people can stay active and stay physically engaged with their friends and family from the safety of their own home. Alongside this, we also developed activity cards that are free to download and full of different activities and sports and games for people to try and people to play with the equipment that they have. And in addition, for those who are able to access the internet independently, we run twice weekly online physical activity sessions on Zoom, as well as social sessions. So people still have the opportunity to meet with friends and interact with our coaches and with other members. And the reason why we've run this wide variety of activities across different mediums is because many of our members, up to 75% of our members, lack independent access to the internet. So we wanted to make sure we've been able to send equipment, we've been able to do things online, and alongside that, we've also made sure that our coaches and our project officers give members regular phone calls, again, to encourage that social interaction and reduce isolation. And the next slide, Hugh, I'll hand over to you to talk about the impact that's made over the last 5 months.
Great, thanks, Amardeep. It's really wrapping up this section of the presentation with a nice colourful infographic, which gives some sort of headline figures on the impact we've had, all those things that Amardeep's been talking about. I'm not going to go through every one because they are fairly self-explanatory, but if I just can pick up a couple that we're really keen to share with you. So top left, over 2,000 minutes of activity online now, and that's meant to a complete change of business model from a charity that was traditionally face-to-face in terms of service to going completely online during lockdown. That's a kind of really key figure, and it shows the commitment we've shown to actually really trying to continue with that engagement with our members. Bottom left, yeah, we had a brief sort of summary on the activity packs and what's included in those. Sent over well over 300 of those now. And again, there's a commitment from our charity to send out even more over the next few months. So we're going to see that figure considerably rise with support from various funders for whom we're incredibly grateful to allow us to continue to do that. And then just sort of top right, in terms of the reach of our engagement, I think that's really impressive. Just looking within London initially, we've almost had representation from pretty much 50% of all London boroughs. But we've also gone national and we've gone global, as Peter mentioned earlier. So we've had the opportunity through lockdown to reach new markets, and we want to continue working with those organisations, those partners, those individuals as well. So just a quick summary on that impact in sort of figures. And we're really chuffed, bearing in mind as well that during this period, 30% of our staff were furloughed. And so this was done on the skeleton staff, and I think it makes it even more impressive what we've managed to achieve to keep that momentum going. Next slide, please, Pete. So we've looked back at what we've done during lockdown. So let's have a quick projection into the future. Navigating through the next few months is going to be tough. It's going to have challenges. We know that, it's inevitable. But we have got an action plan in place, which is essentially going to take us through to the end of the year. And just wanted to highlight a couple of particular activities we're going to be involved with over the next few months. We're kicking off actually next week with a mini summer park series. And this is really key for us because it's our first venture back into face-to-face coaching after that sort of 5-month break that most people experience. So it's good for our coaches, but it's also good for our participants as well to build up their confidence. They're inevitably going to have some fears as well, but hopefully we can quickly allay those for those people that come along to those sessions in safe park environments. Really key for us, September is going to be heralding, all things being well, the resumption of our community club programme, those 14 community clubs that we've referred to that operate across London. And they may look different, they're probably going to have smaller numbers. They're going to be various social distancing measures in place, etc., as we're all getting used to now. So they're going to have a different look and feel, but it's key that we get those up and running as soon as we possibly can. Training is another key area, which we've touched upon. Fortunately, we do have an e-learning course, an online course that's been running successfully right throughout the whole period. But it's key for us, again, to get back into face-to-face workshops. We're not anticipating that's going to happen straight away. It's going to be a phased process, but we're already started getting inquiries in from organisations, which is really encouraging. And then finally, the other sort of main strand of our services are our community coaching, which takes place in various different environments across the community. The key thing here is that we're going to keep the online stuff going. That's really important. We've had discussions about whether they should be phased out or not. No, they're not. They're going to stay. We feel that's absolutely key for those people, for whatever reason, can't get to coaching sessions. So it's going to be that combination of online and face-to-face, certainly through the rest of the autumn and probably into New Year as well. Okay, that's all from me. So back over to Peter.
Thanks both. It gives just a snippet of what we're up to, where we come up from, which I'm really proud of, and really proud of our guys that were working during that period as well, because it was a tough old period, but I think we managed to come out the other side. Okay, now I'm going to pass you over to Celia Kumar from Sport England. So Celia, if you wouldn't mind, great.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for having me today. It's really good to be here. I'm not from any as quite exciting as Australia or Malawi or France or Wales, actually, but not quite close by in Bristol. So as Pete mentioned, I'm from Sport England. And we're a public body and our kind of vision is that everybody, regardless of background, age, ability, feels able to take part in sport and physical activity. And largely our work focuses around supporting the kind of grassroots sport in England. So I just wanted to share with you some insight that we've been collating since the kind of start of lockdown and the impact of COVID. We've done a huge amount of work in terms of supporting the sector around financial packages and other support. But a lot of what we've been doing over the last few months as well has been around collecting some of that insight, both primary insight that we've done ourselves and from secondary sources. And we see that as kind of a really important part of our work in terms of sharing that with the sector, and all of us to be able to kind of start to understand the kind of big picture. There's obviously been a massive impact, and it's wider than sport and physical activity. It's obviously across the aspects of society. We know that COVID is exacerbating inequalities. It's not being felt evenly across communities. And as a result, we've seen the widening of inequalities in sport and physical activity. This is being seen disproportionately for some groups, in particular people on low incomes, disabled people and people with long-term health conditions, who are likelier to still be self-isolating. Obviously the rules around shielding have changed, but that's not to say that we know that a lot of people are feeling really anxious about returning. Just what you were saying in terms of the types of delivery that people are looking at, there needs to be a real kind of mix that's appropriate for everybody, and the kind of way that people feel they might want to return, and that might be really gradual, or they might not feel comfortable kind of going into community settings for a long time, and people from BAME backgrounds who have also been disproportionately affected. And there's obviously lots of crossover and intersectionality between all of the different audiences. So as a result, we've focused a lot of our work over the last few months on responding to this emerging picture. We've invested and prioritised these audiences, particularly through our Tackling Inequalities Fund. If you just go to the next slide, please. So today I'm just going to share some of the data that we've got around physical activity levels with a focus on disabled people. Sorry, just the next one, please. So prior to COVID, there's been a really significant gap in disabled people's activity levels compared with non-disabled people's, and that gap was flat and really stubbornly not budging for many years. It was around sort of twice as likely to be inactive if you were disabled than non-disabled people. But actually in our most recent series of Active Live results, we were starting to see some really positive news, with upward movement in activity levels, particularly for people with 3 or more impairments, and decreases in inactivity levels. So we were feeling at Sport England, like in terms of the overall picture, that obviously our team has been focusing on for a long time, that we were starting to see some really positive progression. And you can see that the activity levels there in that graph that show you where we were kind of standing before COVID. And we could just go on to the next slide, please. Obviously, that has taken a massive hit, not just for disabled, but everybody, but particularly for people with barriers to physical activity in any case. And so I've got a few slides that have based on some research we ran weekly. It's still running, but not actually weekly. It's a bit more periodic now. Through Savanta Comres throughout the lockdown period to give us a really accurate snapshot on activity levels. So if we could just go on to the next one. So the 3 lines that we've got here, sorry, I don't know if it's, I think the writing is a bit small. If you could look at the blue one, the light blue one on the bottom, that's disabled people or people with long-term health conditions. And on the top line is blue or black. Actually, I can't, I'm afraid that's not very good in terms of accessibility at all. So apologies for that. But that's the overall population. So if you look at the top one and then the lowest one, and you can clearly see the impact that the lockdown periods had on disabled people, people with long-term health conditions. It's significantly lower than the whole population. So the inequalities that we were seeing through Active Lives are holding true through the weekly tracker. And we've heard really positive stories from people as well in terms of access to digital content and some of the things that prior to COVID people were asking for, but on a kind of mass scale weren't available. But that's certainly not been the case for everybody. And obviously the numbers that you've identified earlier there in terms of your club members, 75% of people not having internet, and particularly for people with learning disabilities, there's a real issue on digital divide. If we could just go on to the next one. So the next two slides are around the impact kind of based on our behaviour change model that we use, which is around capability, opportunity, motivation, leading to behaviour change. So this is around how people kind of feel, whether they have those things in place. So you can see here from the weekly survey that the number of people, again, disabled people and people with long-term health conditions, is below the overall line in terms of activity levels per week. And in terms of people who are inactive, it's that line in the middle column. And if we just move on. And in terms, again, in terms of some of the attitude around how you feel about whether you have time, if you found new ways to be active, and one of the questions that we put in there around whether the government advice encourage you to be active. So we can see that people are less likely, disabled people are less likely to feel that they have more time to be physically active, that they found new ways to be active, or to have encouraged to exercise. And the purpose of this is not to sort of paint a negative picture around the impact. It's to, if there are a particular, on this slide in particular, there are certain kind of groups of the population that feel like some of the messaging that's going out is really resonating, but other parts of the population where that's really not the case for, then obviously in terms of sharing that with the sector, that really helps all of us to kind of respond in a different way, and make sure that the work we're doing as things return to that sort of new normal is really kind of right for people and is going to work in the way that they need it to. Just second to last slide, please. And just some of the wider impacts as well. There's obviously a much wider context to the impact on physical activity levels. I mentioned kind of people feeling anxious. There's obviously been a really big impact on people's mental health. And some of the insight that we've got from second sources showing the impact on disabled people. If we could just go to the last one, please. And we know that the shielding of official advice might be over, but actually lots of people are obviously choosing to self-isolate, and for medical reasons are less likely to feel that they can return to a community setting or go back to a leisure facility, for example. And the kind of stark reality is disabled people have had higher mortality rates linked to COVID, and have been more likely to spend time alone. And in terms of the type of support that organisations like Disability Sports Coach and many others that we've worked with, those kind of links that have been provided to people in terms of the social element and being able to people in a different way, either through setting up online work or through telephone calls, has been absolutely crucial to people's ability to stay socially connected. And the last one actually that I put in here, as I felt was really important for people, sorry, not the last slide, actually just the last point, that disabled people are just as likely as non-disabled people to be active and supporting their communities. So just in terms of both volunteering, but that general kind of social connection, disabled people want to take part, feel, and are already involved in their communities. So I think that was kind of, there was some quite a bit of kind of negative press around this in terms of this coming out of the Research Institute for Disabled Consumers research, and I just felt that was really important to put that kind of in there as well, in a positive picture, not all being so negative. And I think that's probably it from me, but I just wanted to share that because I feel that one of our kind of really key roles is to share the insight that we're gathering and to ask our partners to get in touch with us, tell us what they're seeing, and it really, really helps to for us to kind of respond in the right way, as if we can build as clear a picture as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for that very formative, and we are getting the messages at a local level. So well, it's not a plea to hear that it's national as well, but it drives our cause of what we can support more to see with people with nationally as well. So that's a good for kiss bars. Okay, lastly, I'm going to pass you over to Rod Drew from the Cubed. One of our corporate partners to just take you through what they've done. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, Peter. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me loud and clear. And thank you to Peter, Amardeep, Hugh, and the rest of the DSC team for the opportunity to be part of this today. So, Peter, can I have the next slide, please? So I'm Rodri. I am one of the people in that picture there in front of you. And I represent an organisation called MIGSO P Cubed. And we are a project management consultancy. And we are primarily based in London, but we have offices around the world. But there's about 200 of us in the UK. And we work with all different organisations, and we work on exciting things like helping plan Olympics and Paralympic events, to something much more relevant at the moment, which is working with the government to help them on their response to COVID-19, and also working with lots of other organisations, both private and public, to help them keep their businesses running through a significant period of change that we've all been through. Have the next slide, please, Peter. So when I think Amardeep and Peter asked me to come and talk for a few minutes about our partnership, I thought, well, how do I start that? As an organisation, we've been partners with DSC since 2018, and I thought, well, the way I'll approach it is I'll go at this from values. So values are the things that individually we find important or desirable, and organisationally we find important or desirable. And I'm a firm believer that for a real connection between individuals or between organisations, you really need your values to align so that you know you can work together, and you know that you find those things important, and you're striving always for an outcome that you both see as desirable. So on the screen here, you've got what are the MIGSO P Cubed values. So they're summarised by TRIPPLE with 2 Ps, as Peter pointed out to me earlier. But teamwork, responsive, integrity, practitioners, passionate, learning, and empowered. And if I think about my work with the DSC team and my work with my own team, I see all of those values through my interactions. And as we go through the next few minutes, I just want to call some of them out and really show how they align and why they're really important. So Peter, the next slide, please. So the first one I'm going to call out is teamwork. I'm going to use the example of individuals running a half marathon as my example of teamwork. But for me, it really is a team effort. The 2 pictures you've got on your screen are only a year apart, but it's like they were from completely different times. The picture on the left, we managed to get 7 of us to run the 2019 Vitality Big Half Marathon, raising money for DSC. And that event was probably best remembered for being in the middle of something called Storm Gareth, which resulted in the closure of Greenwich Park, which was where we were supposed to meet afterwards, which is why we're all stood in the middle of the road outside a pub outside of Greenwich Park. The picture on the right is of, let's say, 16 people all standing really close together. And that picture was actually from 2020, which when I look back on it now, is quite hard to imagine. But it was from March the 1st this year, 3 weeks before the entire nation went into lockdown. But by 2020, we managed to get 20 of our team running the Vitality Big Half for DSC. And as an organisation over the last 3 years, we've raised over £6,000, which has allowed DSC to deliver their services. And I'm assuming that as soon as the events for the next couple of years get organised, then either Amardeep or Peter will be on the phone to me asking me how many of the team I can round up for the next event. So teamwork's really important. I see that in all of my interactions with the DSC team. Next slide, please, Peter. Responsive. So I mentioned earlier, I work for a consultancy, and good business for a consultancy is that all of our team are out working with our clients, which should mean that there's nobody in our office other than our central services and our reception team. And what this does is let us share our resources with the disability sports coach team. So if we can share our meeting rooms, we can share our office space, it allows them to save funds, it allows them to work together, and if they can save funds, they can redirect their money to delivering their services. Obviously, since March, our office has been closed like so many others, but hopefully we will be back and up and working in our London office, and we can continue that relationship of allowing the DSC team to make the best use of our facilities so that they can deliver their services. Next slide, please, Peter. Practitioners. I head up the CSR activity within the MRGSO PCube. So how do we as an organisation meet our corporate and social responsibilities? And we see a lot of demands from a lot of charities around, can you give time for this? Can you give time for that? And time's a really interesting thing because you can only give the time that you choose to prioritise. But what we're also really keen on as a group is to be able to share our skills, and our expertise. We have consultants who work with small and large organisations all around the world who are working with those organisations to develop their strategy, to build their brands, to grow their revenues. So being able to use some of those skills and bring them to bear for the benefit of Peter and the team to help them grow their charity is really important. It's a slightly different psychological experience for our team because they're investing their own skills and their own brain power and using it for the good of a charity. And that's got a real feel-good activity to it. And it slightly pushes it for us to make it much better than just giving our time. Time's really important and we're happy to give it. But if we can use our skills and we can see that growth, then that really does help us, you know, it helps ensure that our relationship is a strong one. And we learn as much from the DSC team, hopefully, as they learn from us. Next one, please. So passionate. I said time's an interesting thing. I was lucky enough to be able to volunteer last year to be part of the summer festival, along with a number of my colleagues, and we always have a great time supporting. And I spent my entire day playing sitting volleyball, and it's probably the most I've ever ached from sitting down all day, and wasn't something that I'd planned on. But definitely to see people out enjoying sport and experiencing sport and being able to play a small role in that is really important for us. Last slide, please, Peter. So I'm going to end on empowered. Amardeep mentioned empowered earlier. Empowered's an important value for us. We empower our teams to go and do the best job they can for their clients and go and do the best job they can for anyone that they're interacting with. And that's really important. And I see that in the disability sports coach team and how they are helping to empower people through sport. We're really proud to have been able to play a role and continue playing a role to help DSC to deliver their equipment packs, to deliver their training, to run their community clubs, and that we can make a small contribution to empowering disabled people and their families and their carers and their friends through sport. And I found a quote to sum up our time, and I really believe in this, and it's from Nelson Mandela, and it's that sport has the power to change the world, and it has the power to inspire, and it has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. And if I look and I think of the journey that we've been on since 2018 with DSC, and perhaps more specifically that DSC have been on since March of this year, how they've maintained their services, how they've transformed their services, and how they continue to use sport as a way to inspire and unite people. It's really empowering. It's empowering for us as an organisation, and we're really proud to be part of this partnership. That's it from me, Peter. Thank you. You're on mute, Peter.
Thank you, for that. A very delightful thing, and it's been a delightful 2 years or more that we've been partners. So thank you for your continued support. And we will be wanting at least 50 members of your team for the next big half. So just an FYI there. Okay, just to finish off, thank you for everyone joining us today. Thank you to my guys, which they did Deacon up Q, and to Celia from Sport England and Rob Drew for their contribution to today's session. Again, thank you to our sponsors for the week. Remember, if you're doing social media, please tag Virtual Summer Festival and the and that's really it. But thank you very much for everyone's contribution. The next session of today is going to be at 2:30, where we have a Boccia England on. So if you want to take part in that, more welcome. We also have a Paralympic theme session at 5:30 today as well, with Kate Gray and things like that. So please join those. Well, as we can't do this work without finances. So if you have got any spare change, please donate it to us. It's always it's always needed. So thank you very much, everyone, and we'll speak soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.